Hey everybody, welcome to our channel, Nick and Janae. Janae is normally back there at that desk, but new vantage point today because it's just going to be me. Janae's feeling a little bit under the weather. So today, quick video, we're talking about brand extensions and a little bit about line extensions, if it's good for your brand, if it's something you want to jump into 2023, a little bit of background on it. So let's just jump right into it. Yeah? Cool. First up, what is a brand extension? What is a line extension? A brand extension is when you start making something outside of your vertical. So let's say you make mugs and now you want to start making disposable cups. That is kind of under the same umbrella. It's kind of in the same general space, but technically it is a new type of product. It's not like I'm making blue mugs and now I'm going to make red mugs. That would be considered a line extension. You're making new versions of kind of the same core thing. A brand extension is your brand is extending into making other kinds of things. You see this a lot of times when brands want to find new customers with that new product, or they want to sell that new vertical to their existing customers and therefore increasing their sales. So it's just another tool in your tool belt for increasing sales. And as we look to the new year and putting together our plan for the new year, it might be something to look at. Now that you kind of have like a rough overview, let's jump into some examples so that it kind of brings it down to earth. So a line extension, to get that out of the way, Diet Coke Cherry, Diet Coke Cherry with lime, Diet Coke lime, caffeine-free Diet Coke cherry. You see where I'm going with this? So you are extending the same line, the same Diet Coke line with different variations. A really good example of a brand extension that we just saw the other day when we were at Target is Welly, that make the, we'll call them bandages. I was going to say Band-Aids, but that's that's its own brand. They make the little colorful bandages, and I'll throw it up here on the screen as well. But they recently started getting into supplements and kind of over-the-counter pain medicine like Tylenol and stuff like that. Oh, it's another one. That's a brand name. Aspirin and ibuprofen and digestive aids. When you zoom back, you can see that from making Band-Aids to making digestive aids to making kind of supplements, it could fall under the same kind of core company mission, even though those are separate kind of industries, separate verticals, but they kind of fit. I think if they were to start making sunglasses, that might come off a little bit disingenuous, but I think it makes sense with their kind of overall company mission. Another famous example of a brand extension is Jack Daniel's, where they took what their kind of core product, their whiskey, meant, that kind of lifestyle vibe around that whiskey, and they extended that out as a brand into meats, so much so that they even have their own domain called Jack Daniel's Meats that just sells like prepackaged meat products, that's really using that company name as an extension of the whiskey. They also do, I think, like coffee and maple syrup and roasted nuts, and they've really gone and extended that brand out to so much more, because when you think about alcohol specifically, you are marketing to people that drink. And at some point, the conversation was had, how do we get people that might have an affinity for our brand but don't drink alcohol? That calls back to that, how do we get different customers? It might not just be that our customers want product A over B, they might not actually engage with our core product, even though they might have a affinity for it. Now that we have an idea of what it is and some examples of it, why would this maybe be a good idea for your brand in the coming year? Let me give you some reasons why. So if I look at my notes here, customers in the millennial and Gen Z demographic are 86% more likely to attach themselves to a brand based on the brand's values and not so much about the physical products that the brand is making. This is new and has really been spurred on by social media and brands really showing who they are above and beyond their product, and customers asking to know who they're buying from to build a better relationship. So when you do form that bond and you feel like you know that company and that you kind of have this alignment of values, you're a lot more likely to buy anything new from them because you're already aligned almost on a base level. This familiarity with customers and brands where they have this alignment of values and are really connected to the brands is putting brands in a unique space where you have the opportunity to try or even engage your customer base in feeling out new brand extensions. This puts your brand in an interesting space as you have now a relationship with your customer that is almost separate from the transactions, which is new. We really haven't had this before. And when I say new, I mean like the last 20 or 30 years. But you are connecting with them and you can iterate new product to them. You could even test new product to them, which we'll get into in a second. But you have this connection, almost kind of like you have a friend group and you wanted to seed something new to the friend group and talk about something new or introduce them to something new. And it's a lot easier because they know who you are and you're not trying to get them on an end cap at a supermarket. And you have no other way of communicating with them except for the directly into the sales channel like you would have done in the 50s or 60s. So we're in this new space. We have this unique opportunity. Let's dive into how to get into it. So let's say you want to dive into this. You want to do something. You're making socks. You want to start making mittens. That's a callback to our last video where we talked about socks and licensing. You should check that video out. I'll put it here. I'm new to YouTube. The first thing you want to do when you're looking at a brand extension, looking at my notes here, is that you want to make sure that it aligns with your overall company mission and values. We talked about the Jack Daniel's like meats, and we talked about the core brand. And if you go to their website and you look, they have taken everything about the ethos of Jack Daniel's and moved it over to those meats. So there is a really, really strong link between the original product and the brand extension. And you can do that well and you can do that poorly, but the deciding factor in that is that if somebody were able to say this and this look like they're coming from the same company with the same values. Because remember, the brand is connected to your values, and if it feels disingenuous, you're kind of severing the tie that was allowing you to make that jump over. A quick tangent on that, something called brand equity is how much you are trusted in the space of the thing that you make. And sometimes brands will try to parlay their connection with their customers into a brand extension where they don't necessarily have brand equity. And if it's something where a customer is really, really looking for a company that is known for that thing, it is really hard for even a brand to make that jump. An example of this, if you remember, oh boy, how many years ago is this? Maybe in like 2015, 2016, Starbucks was trying to fill that afternoon slump that they had where people weren't going to the stores for coffee, and they tried to fill that slump with alcohol. At least here in California, they were trying like a afternoon, evening kind of menu where they would have flatbreads and they would have beer and wine, I think it was. I don't think they had like a full bar. But they were trying to take their kind of brand and they were trying to do a brand extension away from their core vertical, which was coffee, at least in the retail locations. It was like coffee and pastries, and it was like a cafe. That was their vertical, was a cafe, and they were trying to move over into like a bar. People know Starbucks. People have a relationship with Starbucks. They do a phenomenal job. I have the Starbucks Rewards app, and the gamification of getting the points and the stars. I'm there for it. They tried to move their brand ethos, and they tried to move that into a bar. But when I think of a bar and what I'm looking for in a bar, I don't think of Starbucks. Starbucks to me had no like track record in the bar space for me to want to trust them with something like that. They had no equity in that space, so it was not an obvious step. They ended up scrapping it because it was such a lift to build brand equity in a space that you do not, that even somebody like Starbucks found it easier to not try to break into the bar space. So be wary if you're trying to break into a new vertical where the customer might question, what authority do you have in this space? Why are you better than this other brand I know in this space? You know, if you make keychains and then you want to go into sunglasses, you could argue, well, those are both accessories, but sunglasses you're going to be in a space where you have Ray-Ban and Warby Parker, and if somebody knows why they're the best at those things, they're going to go, well, why are you like why are the reasons that I like your keychains are going to be the reasons that I like your sunglasses? I don't know that you're going to make good sunglasses. I know Ray-Ban makes good sunglasses. I know Warby Parker makes good sunglasses. So just be wary about the vertical you're jumping into, and that you have enough equity. There's enough of a relationship where your equity in the space that you own already can move over. Welly is a good one. Welly made bandages. It was in the first aid and self-care, and then they started to make supplements. And supplements, okay, it's a little bit of a stretch, but I think it was in the same it was in the same arena, and supplements are not like medicine. So I think it was close enough that they made it work, and then from supplements they went over to like first aid, like aspirin and acetaminophen, because again, it's not like it is at that point it was medicine, but it was close enough jump from like supplements to medicine. So you see how the jumps made sense, but they didn't start offering like prescription drugs all of a sudden, because that that probably would have worked, but it would have been a bigger leap. There would have been a ton of education needed. Like a better example is if Welly were to come out, I think we talked about it, like accessories or something, but if they started coming out with, candy, even, the bright colors, their tins, if they started to do the same thing but in the candy aisle, they'd have some really stiff competition. If they were just like little chocolates, it's like, why don't I get M&Ms? If it was sour candy, why don't I get Sour Patch Kids? They really would have had to justify their being in that space, and I think it would have been a lot more of a lift because they were so foreign to it. Would have been like a brand new company. You're not carrying over any of the momentum you have. Apart from like making a product, you can also engage the community of people that you have that buy your product now and love your brand, separate from making the thing. If you can give your existing community an early heads up to plans for new product launches, you can create instances where they might like tell people, well, I don't do so and so, but I know my friend or my significant other or my family member does this and they would love it. And because they're such a fan of your brand and you're connecting with them in a community kind of setting and less of a sales setting, they're going to do the outreach for you. Might give you like a target customer base before you even launch the product, and you might even get feedback on features or different aspects of the product that you wouldn't have gotten until it was out in the marketplace. You could showcase like comps even to your customers and say, hey, we love that you love us and we wanted to kind of bring you in, so would you like cherry Coke or strawberry Coke? What do you think would be super cool? And they're gonna feel heard. They're gonna feel heard. They're gonna have felt that you had heard them, and it's going to increase that bond that you have, that the customer has with the brand. But it's also going to help you develop your product and give you that product iteration before you've even made the product. Early access is another great one. If you make some samples, you could seed it out to some of your VIP customers and get their feedback on it, because even if they're not the target demo of that product, because you involve them and they have an affinity for the brand, they're going to be providing great feedback on if this passes the vibe check on being something that I associate with your brand. It's almost even better if they don't use that brand extension, because they're just looking at, does this feel like the thing that I already know? Now some nitty gritty. If you can't do like a product iteration in a community setting kind of thing where you're like showing off product and you need to like make something, but you don't want to commit to like make something, you could leverage drop shipping. There's also like print on demand companies. So this is very specific to the type of product you're making. But if you're making phone cases or something and you want to go into making mugs, Printify or Printful, or there's a handful of other ones that will let you print on demand for mugs, and maybe you have your own facility that can make them, but their MOQs are going to be higher. This lets you, albeit make less margin on those units that you're printing on demand because the unit cost is a lot higher, but you can make them as people order them to really test out the market. And I've seen it done before where there is a final goal of producing something at scale at, 2,500 to 3 to 5,000 units. But you test something at 100 units and you barely break even at those 100 units, but that is such valuable customer feedback to see what is working and what is not, and then that's the thing that you move up to the full production. So something to think about. If you have any questions on the print on demand or the drop shipping or any kind of low run, low MOQ testing, please ask a question in the comments or shoot me a message. I can definitely help you out with that. Another option in this space is pre-orders. It's kind of a little bit of the community testing and a little bit of the low MOQ, but if you can garner interest and get people to commit with their dollars ahead of something going on sale, I've seen people fund runs with pre-orders. It's kind of like the Kickstarter way of doing it, where you're collecting the money and then using that money to make the thing, but you're doing it with your core group or with kind of the first or second remove people from all of the people in your core group. So guys, that was just a quick video on brand extensions, line extensions. So any of this piques your interest, makes you go, but what about this? But what about that? Leave me a comment, shoot me a message. Let's talk about it. Do you want to do a live about this? I really, really want eventually to do like a live session where we're iterating in real time and we're maybe showing other people how they can iterate their company and get over any hurdles or obstacles that they're facing. Because when we work together like this and share the knowledge, there's really no hurdle that we can't overcome in starting or growing or scaling or diversifying our business. So with that being said, until next week, it's business as usual. Bye.